Hello guys, how's it going? It's been a while. Today we have a brand new video titled "Your immune system is more dangerous than you think." So I started watching this video, and I was like two 2 minutes in, so thereabouts, and then I was like, no, I got to make a reaction video on this. So I'm always fascinated with our immune system. It's not weird. I'm always fascinated with our immune system because, as far as I know, there's no disease that we've come across that hasn't. There's no disease we've come across that has a cure. In how do I phrase this? There's no disease that has a cure that just comes from nowhere. Like most of the time, the cure just triggers our immune system to cure us. So I'm always fascinated by that. Like things like cancer and AIDS that we don't have a cure for are things that we've not figured out a way to make our immune system fight against them. So it's fascinating to me. And when I saw the title of this video, I'm interested to see how our immune system can be dangerous, because I think it's your immune system is more impressive than you think. But let's watch the video together and enjoy.
But I don't wanna miss you, baby. So I stand up and speak my mind. Oh.
Okay, let's go.
There's this idea floating around that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that surviving a disease leaves you better off. And it seems to make sense because we've all experienced this. When you go through hardship, often you come out more resilient, more ready to face a difficult situation in the future. But it turns out that sometimes what doesn't kill you makes you weaker. So what?
Sorry, that just reminds me of this saying too. Is like what you don't know won't kill you. I think that's wrong. I think it's precisely what you don't know that kills you. The things you are blindsided by that's often for that often can't get you in the ass. So yeah.
Happens when you get sick?
A1 animation, by the way.
The machinery of war. Think of yourself as a large country with a sizable army to defend it. You're surrounded by enemies that want to take your land, your energy, your resources. This is a matter of life and death, so your body evolved to be sensitive to damage and to the presence of enemies. Because this means that an invasion might happen at any moment and that it has to act fast. Let's start an invasion and see what happens. The moment your cells notice that something is off, they release an onslaught of signal proteins called cytokines. They're like air raid sirens that activate all sorts of immune cells that then themselves release many more cytokines, amplifying the alarm. Soon, you're flooded with signals that trigger precautions and countermeasures. Mobilization is underway. Your brain activates sickness behavior and reorganizes your body's priorities to defense. The first thing you notice is that your energy level drops and you get sleepy. You feel apathetic, often anxious or down, and you lose your appetite. Your sensitivity to pain is heightened and you seek out rest. All of this serves to save your energy and reroute.
This was like a good excuse for like when people call me and I don't pick off, my cytokines are acting off, I'm feeling down, I don't have energy, and kind of apathetic. I'm sorry guys.
It into your immune response. You become a country under attack, switching into a war economy, because properly activating your immune system is intensely disruptive and draining. Just like war is expensive for a country as industry switches to building tanks, your immune system demands huge amounts of energy, amino acids, and microelements to build its weapons.
That makes sense.
Take fever. It speeds up your metabolism and makes your cells work harder and faster while creating heat that's pretty stressful for many invaders, but it uses up a lot of calories to maintain. Then your immune system begins to clone millions of specialized immune cells to respond specifically to the enemy infecting you. B cells produce millions of antibodies every second, each requiring hundreds of amino acids to construct. Billions or even trillions of proteins need to be made to refresh the complement system, a minefield inside your blood. Cytokines, the mobilization and information signals, also need constant refreshing. Usually, you acquire your resources by eating. But when you're sick, your body slows down your digestion because it needs a lot of energy you can't spare. So it reaches for the easiest source of amino acids and starts breaking down your muscles. All that muscle that you worked so hard for is sacrificed to keep you alive. If you're young and healthy and fit, you'll make up for.
I was gonna make an outdated joke about, oh, this is killing your gains, but cytokines are actually killing your gains.
That quickly once you're better. But if you're old or very young, weak or suffer from chronic illness, this may be way too draining. Your body is literally consuming itself to keep the defense going. If your whole system is already strained, when you get sick, just keeping your immune responses going can overwhelm your capacities. Your immune system is a jerk, our enemies too. Your immune system is as dangerous to you as it is to enemies.
Nice analogy.
There's a very fragile balance between the damage caused by an infection and the collateral damage caused by immune cells. One of your first responders are neutrophils. Imagine crazy aggressive chimps with machine guns. If a neutrophil encounters enemies, it showers them with chemicals that cut them open, but can also damage civilian cells, especially if the patient is already compromised, for example by smoking. On top of that, the microorganisms that invade you often release chemicals and toxins that can cause significant damage and cell death. So a serious infection often causes many tiny wounds, literally holes in your organs. As you can imagine, it's not great to have holes and wounds in your organs, and your body rushes to close them. Your neutrophils and macrophages help by releasing chemicals that signal the body to start repairs, and most of the damage is quickly filled up with regrowing cells. But others are filled with collagen, a sort of fixal organic cement that gives your gooey tissue structural integrity. You've seen the result on your skin as scars. A scar is different from the original tissue. It has no functioning cells in it. It's like a sloppily applied cement patch. It can't do what the original tissue was doing. A scar on your heart makes it beat a tiny bit weaker. A scar on the lungs no longer captures oxygen. A scar on your liver makes it a worse filter. And so as you go through life and survive serious disease after serious disease, the functionality of your organs may decrease. The damage is usually small enough not to affect your quality of life, but can be permanent.
Hold up. This is making me think of something. So, like growing up in Africa, there are a lot of diseases and whatnot that most of us who grew up they have built up a natural immunity to. And if I'm analyzing the information correctly, that will insinuate that for us to have gained so much immunity fighting off all those different diseases, it is also in a way shortening our lifespan because we've had to fight off so many diseases. And seems like every time we fight a disease, it might be like causing scars on our organs and whatnot. Then they don't function as well for as long as they normally would have if we never had to engage those diseases in the first place. So we might be more resilient against certain forms of diseases, but we don't last that long. And maybe that will be something to factor into like general life expectancy in like third world countries.
Okay, this sounds depressing, but there
It
is actually
is.
something you can do to avoid a lot of this damage and train your immune system.
Oh, okay.
The best way to train your immune system. Your immune system is unique. Everyone has a slightly different immune system that's stronger against some enemies and weaker against others.
Okay, this is also very interesting because I never thought this, but now that I hear it, it kind of makes sense. Because that if everybody's immune system is unique and not just like general as I assumed it was, then that would explain the thing with like allergies and stuff. So like, okay, how come this person can eat shrimp, but this person, might die from it?
Which makes evolution
We are wonderfully and fearfully made.
evolutionary sense, as this protects our species from being wiped out by a single infection. Collectively, the immune system of the human species is a spectrum. Most people respond well enough to an infection, a few are super responders, and a few don't respond well and die. Some people survive the Black Death, are more resistant to HIV or coronavirus, or even resistant against Ebola. Others are killed easily by the flu or are highly vulnerable to certain bacterial infections. Where you are on this spectrum is impossible to predict, and you also respond differently to every possible infection. This is why seemingly very healthy young people died from COVID, while for some elderly people, it was more like a mild flu. The idea that you can weather all sorts of diseases if you never get a cold is wrong. You never know what your immune system is good at until it's tested.
Ended ads.
He's gonna
I'm
keep
not gonna
coming
watch
for
this,
us.
by the way. I'm not a huge fan of horror movies. The only reason why I might tolerate this one is because I saw
March 10th.
Scary Movie, and it's kind of a parody, so it took the steam off of all this whatchamacallit. Anyway, back to the video.
Getting sick is a gamble in life's casino with your health on the line. Always. But there is
House
something
always
you can do.
wins.
Hacking one of the best features of your immune system. When you survive a disease, usually you have better defenses against it afterwards. You gain memory cells that are very good at killing the specific enemy you fought that day. So you either don't get the disease again, or the next infection is much milder. And you can use an incredible achievement of human ingenuity that taps into this mechanism to prevent damage from disease and train your immune system. Vaccines. Vaccines basically pretend to be a disease and train your defenses to be ready if it ever shows up for real. The goal is to create the same memory cells that you would get after surviving an infection. But if you can feel some side effects, why should you still do it? Nature versus Vaccine Dojo. You have two options to train your immune system: Vaccine Dojo and Nature Dojo. In Vaccine Dojo, you train with paper weapons and learn to defend yourself. Sure, you might get a black eye or a bruise. Sometimes after a vaccine, you get sick for a few days, but that's generally it. No scars, no permanent damage. We discussed vaccine side effects in detail in another video if you want to learn more. On the other hand, getting a disease to become immune means going to a Nature Dojo. In Nature Dojo, you train with real weapons, sharp knives, and swords. Things might still work out, but with way more cuts and wounds. But from time to time, someone will die.
Back to what I was saying earlier about like life expectancy and the scars on our organs and whatnot. This kind of like leads into that also because it's the same video, but it kind of leads into that also in the sense that we in Africa, let me talk about Nigeria because that's where I grew up. In Nigeria, we are in the nature dojo. You know, we're facing them bacterias head on.
Be it a kid from measles or an adult from influenza. Nature Dojo is just way more risky. On top of that,
It is.
the immunity you get from a vaccine is often better than the natural resistance because they're engineered to engage your immune system in a more productive way. Of course, vaccines are not magic, and sometimes they don't protect us as well as we'd like them to. Maybe because an enemy mutates too quickly, like the Omicron coronavirus, or because your specific immune system does not respond well to the vaccine and builds less of a defense. Still, being vaccinated is one of the best tools to train your natural defenses. In the end, if we look at the stunning progress humanity has made in the last century, eventually we may overcome disease for good. But until then, we can do our best to take care of ourselves and others.
Okay, so I have a pet peeve with stats. That sounds crazy saying that, but let me off the caption so I can say this properly. Okay. Um, Cases per million. Okay, measles versus vaccine coverage. So as the cases per million increases, the percentage of wait, as the percentage of 1 year olds that have been immunized increases, the cases per million decreases. So with more people that are immunized for measles when they are younger, as that percentage increases, the amount of people who gets the case is also decreasing. The thing, the my pet peeve with like stats tables and things like that is sometimes they are locking variables, and this is something I learned from AP Stats. Shout out to my AP Stat teacher. He told me this would come in handy. I didn't believe him. I guess he was right. Stay in school, kids. Um, so there's something called locking variables, and that's like the short form is causation. Correlation is not necessarily causation. So perhaps the reason why from 1982, let's see how far the stats goes.
The stunning progress.
So perhaps the reason why from 1982 to 1988 of why the cases per million for measles is decreasing, immunization could very well be a factor, but the locking variables could also be a situation whereby the increase in the awareness about certain diseases, people who are building up natural immunities to the measles, in the nature dojo, might also have increased within the 6 years of that time. So it makes sense that the cases per million will decrease over time, with or without the vaccine, hypothetically. But the vaccine definitely could, like, I believe it was effective. So the vaccine actually helped, but we can't necessarily say it is the main reason, because there are also like a lot of factors that we can't consider, because maybe the places where measles um, were predominant, maybe they became better at combating measles outside of the vaccine, because not everybody might necessarily get the vaccine. I'm rambling, but basically, yeah, pay attention to the details within the statistics. Just because the table shows it doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% accurate.
As humanity has made in the last century, eventually we may overcome disease for good. But until then, we can do our best to take.
I'm pausing a lot. I actually don't think it's possible for us to overcome diseases for good. I believe the more diseases we overcome, we're just going to find new diseases down the road in the future. Now, maybe because of better standard of living, maybe our bodies isn't subject to as much stress now as it used to be in the past, in the sense that we are not in a constant state of survival where our body is draining draining our life force, so to speak, to just get us through the day, to prioritize our survival. And now we have more like energy to spare, and like our organs can live longer because they are not under much stress. Our brains can think of creative things and other fascinating things, because it's not like just on high alert surveilling the area in case of any predator that might be lurking in the wild. So what was my point?
Care of ourselves and others. Your body and your older self will be grateful to you. Diseases are not the only problem humanity can address if we work together. We believe the same is true for climate change, one of the main challenges of our generation. We're very passionate about this topic, and we've covered it extensively in previous videos. Humanity needs to tackle this problem.
If you guys have seen my previous videos, I'm talking about like the one I did on man versus nature versus man, and other videos I've done. I have an issue when it comes to talking about climate change, but hopefully I wouldn't go too deep into it this video. I said I was going to stop talking about it, so let's just see where this goes.
On different levels of society, from governments and economies down to the individual. And there's one way you can take action now, by working with our friends from REN, who help you offset your carbon emissions. By visiting ren.co and answering a few questions, you can find a print description that we think it's one of many puzzle pieces that can make a real difference in the climate crisis. Once you sign up to make a monthly contribution,
I don't know.
We appreciate REN's focus on transparency and impact, so you is refrigerant destruction. Old refrigerators use a project we find especially interesting. so you can always retrace how your money is spent. One project we find
like the
especially
accountability
interesting
of
is
expenses.
refrigerant destruction. Old refrigerators use harmful gases as a coolant. These gases, once released into the atmosphere, cause global warming thousands of times faster than CO2. WREN's project permanently destroys containers filled with these gases, proving with high certainty that they'll never leak and contribute to global warming. Sign up through wren.co/Kurzgesagt to start helping the planet. As climate change is close to our... to sign up. And check out these products
Is the rest of the video just
every
the
day.
ad?
All of our products are...
Oh, I could have just stopped the video then. Okay, so I'll give my final statement on the climate change issue. I say final statement like I'm not going to talk about it again if it comes up, but I'll just keep it short. I believe climate change is real, and I believe it's a real problem that we do have to contend with. However, I don't I don't think it is as pressing an issue as a lot of people seem to believe. And the reason why I say that is because the tactics some people are instigating for or are actively trying to implement to combat climate change are doing more harm than good. Climate change, worrying about the climate and doing things to make the climate better, is not about it's not just about creating awareness for the subject. A lot of people know that it's not snowing as much as it used to. A lot of people know that the climate and throwing plastic in the sea or even using plastic is dangerous. It's just about cost benefits analysis. So, in a country where people are barely able to afford gas, they probably wouldn't be able to afford solar panels. So taking away gas and replacing it with solar panels just means a lot of people will have nothing. They won't have solar panels because they can't afford it, and they won't have gas because it's been banned. So what would they do? Either they freeze and starve, or they resort to even more crude sources of energy like coal. People are using coal and firewood to cook in Nigeria today because people can't buy gas because the economy is in the state of disarray, election politics is wild out there. My point is the solution to climate change is to let it happen naturally. The planet can handle it. Mother Nature got hands. Check out the video I made about that also. But Mother Nature, she'll be fine. She's a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. She can handle it. And you got like climate change has been happening since the dawn of time, from the ice age to everything that happens. The earth has a way of renewing itself. With plastic and everything, I believe plastic will just end up being incorporated in the earth. If human beings were to die out today, like all these buildings and whatnot that we think is like a threat to the planet will just be overgrown and taken back by nature, and whatever civilization comes after that will just like maybe like the skyscrapers that we look at will just be like mountains to them, because it's just nature keeps going. The important part is we trying to survive, because nature comes for comes for our fate too. So I said I'm not going to talk about it so much, but I'll just keep it there. Thank you for watching the video. I'm going to be making probably 2 more tonight and then release it at different times. And the next video is going to be on the Fermi paradox part 2, because I owe you guys that. And then the last video is probably just going to be me talking to you guys as I'm talking, because we do need to talk. All right, guys, see you then. Bye. Deuces.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. my